Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So it's towards the end of June. I'm going to give you a full garden tour and I'll give you an update on where I'm at. I feel a little bit behind with the things that are going on and the progress of the garden, and I'll show you some of the things that a lot of other YouTubers just aren't showing you. I've got my potatoes in buckets and we've had a few harvests. So as you can see, the buckets that are empty and there's no plants going out of. I've taken potatoes from them and I'm waiting for new, and I've planted them straight away, so I'm waiting for new potatoes to grow from them. And there's some potatoes that are coming ready to be harvested. My potted up chilies are coming on all right outside. What I've done this year is I've got the less hot varieties like green chilies over here, hot wax over here. And these are the types of chilies that I'm leaving to grow outside. And the hot wax are actually producing really well. And I haven't gone for large pots in them. I've seen from that root restriction on these hot waxes that the plants seem to produce a lot better. So they're not putting on excessive top growth and they're just coming on a little bit better. Aubergines are just coming into flower. The heat that we've recently had has really helped them. I mean, I've noticed a massive difference in the last week or so that they've just come on leaps and bounds because of that heat. This top garden, the sweet corn's coming on. Some of the plants have come on really nice, but then there's some real dwarf midget plants at the back that just seem a little bit stunted and they just don't seem to have put on the growth. I don't know why, because when I planted these, I planted the taller varieties or the longer, bigger plants at the back and the shorter plants at the front. And so I expected the longer plants to do much better. But for some reason, they've just really not come on as well. This time last year, this garden was full of squash. So I've got one squash plant over there that just seems to have come on really well and it's put on a good bit of size. But same plants planted at the same sort of time, and you can see where they're at. They're just so far behind. They're just really struggling. We've really had a problem with a lack of rain this year. It's been a really crazy year with the rain, so the ground's just absolutely dry, and the plants just don't seem to be responding. And also because I'm struggling for time, so we're getting loads of tomatoes. We're getting fresh tomatoes every day now, at least a handful of tomatoes that we can pick. We've got honeycomb over here. I think they're Rotan Raja, so they're a Bangladeshi sort of variety. And I'm missing these. You know, I come out and I miss the suckers, and they've already put on a nice big sucker, and I feel horrible to take them off, especially when they've got a truss of flowers on them. And when my plants aren't doing as well, I just don't want to lose that truss. And one of the good things about, you know, if you double stem a plant, I'll show you better inside. When you double stem a plant, it just takes a little bit of vigor out of the plant and it grows a little bit slower and doesn't turn into a monster. But this plant, I mean, it was planted the same time as that. It was planted out the same time as that one. And look at it, the whole stem, you know, it just seems to be really struggling. I just don't understand it at all. But the ground is really dry. Got some spaghetti chilies back here, and some of these are coming on okay. Some of them are putting on some good size. See, look at this. This is what happens, you know, if you don't tie in the tomato plant properly. Didn't tie that one in properly and it snapped in half. So all those tomatoes from the top of the plant, they're all lost. And that's a waste there. Absolute waste. So I had that absolute tragedy with my chickens eating, or my baby chicks eating all my onion plants. So I bought a couple of packets of sets and I planted them, but because they were quite late, they just haven't put on the size. They're starting to flop over. They just feel they're just neglected. They're struggling. I don't even think I'm going to get my money's worth back on the money I paid for the sets in the onions that I could have just bought from the supermarket. So it just seems like a bit of a wasted effort with them. That's the reason that seeds are such a better option for onions, as long as you don't have young chicks around to eat them all. My bottle gourds are a bit of a mixed bag, so we've got some over here that are romping away and they're coming on really nice, putting on some good growth now. But this time last year, all my bottle gourds were doing the same and they were all putting on a lot of good growth. But I've got bottle gourds at the back like that that are really struggling. Like that plant, it should have been at the top of the arch, should have been spreading out across the top. Same with that one over there. It's just really struggling, really slow. There's absolutely no reason at this stage of its life that it should be, you know, the leaves should be yellowing, or it should be starting to look like, you know, the leaves are crusting off like the way they are. As you know, I pride myself in my bottle gourds. So when I get when I get that sort of result, it is disappointing, but the ground is just so dry. There's no water in it. You can see the same thing that's happening with I'll show you my cabbages when we get around there, but these are the same. This time of year I would have expected nice big hearts on them, especially because of the age that they are. But instead, they're all, you know, they're all bolting, they're all running away, so they're not coming on and forming heads. They're just ending up like that. But what we'll do is we'll pick them all, and we'll take those young leaves, we'll have a stir fry with those young leaves, we'll have a bhaji or something, and we'll plant something else in place. I can see my mum's already planted a few duggie. Again, these are another one that we're way behind with. We're late with these as well. Right next to my potatoes. My potatoes have really struggled this year. I've never watered potatoes before, so normally I never water my potato plants. I plant them in wood chips and I forget about them. And this year we've struggled getting hold of wood chips, so I've improvised a bit using hedge trimmings and stuff like that. But with a lack of rain, they got quite tall, they fell over, and normally, even when they fall over, you know, we've still got lots of green growth pushing up sideways, which is what's happening at the front here. But you can see the ones at the back, they've just completely exposed themselves, and they've exposed that soil to be to the sun, and they'll just evaporate now, so they'll hold on to moisture that much less. My grey water system's helping, but again, if I'd have done this at the start of spring, I could have compensated for the lack of rain. But because I waited and I waited and I was hoping for that rain, and I just didn't get this in place in time, I couldn't, you know, fill up the garden with water. I couldn't get the water into the ground. There's some volunteer potatoes over here. They need pulling actually, and that'll just, if I pull those, that'll just give the space to this squash plant to run free. So my grey water pipe is just emptying out over there, right underneath these sunflowers. And since I've put this grey water, some of these sunflowers have started to come on a little bit. But I've had a horrible season with peas. They've been bitter. They've just really struggled. The heat hasn't been good to them. But the ground here is absolutely dry. You can see that by the transpiration of these squash plants. Squash plants can do this during the day, and then they'll pump up during the night again. But yeah, normally I've got loads on by this time of the year, and I don't know what's happened as well, because I seem to always all have one variety rather than having the varieties that I planted. I planted quite a few, but we lost a lot to slugs when I went away. So I've got some more bottle gourds over here, mashallah. These are coming on okay. This one, la quwwata illa billah, this is coming on quite nice. I need to pull these vines back. So we've eaten one. There's some more coming. These plants over here seem to be a bit better, but again, they start to struggle late on in the season, and I'm seeing it a lot earlier this year. This bottom bed here, when I went to Bangladesh, I planted this with squash, planted loads of stuff here, and I came back and everything was just eaten, everything was decimated. There's one plant there that is just holding on for dear life. Yeah, it's just really holding on for dear life. And it's weird, it really is weird, a real weird year this year. So we came back and we planted some emergency replacements, and that's what that one is in the middle. Even the courgettes are struggling. The ones in the ground, even they're struggling. It's just been a really funny year. I've not been able to dedicate the time to the garden as I normally would, and this year has definitely showed that. And it brings me on to my tomatoes here as well. So you can see how thin these tomato plants are compared to the tomato plants in buckets. They're absolutely, the ones in the buckets are really, quite thick. I'd expected these to thicken up a lot more, especially because they're outside and they're getting the effects of the wind. But they're just really not put on much size. They're not thickened up, and the production, you can even see by the size of the tomatoes, the quality of the tomatoes is just not there. And it's the story of most of my garden. I've got a Marrow in the middle here, and it's coming back to life. I came back and there was hardly anything left on it. Slugs had eaten it, and they're like the original leaves, but it's put on some young leaves. Whether that's going to produce anything or not, I'm not holding out much hope. So because the tomatoes aren't doing well, what I've been doing is I've been taking suckers and I've been planting suckers, and they're coming on. Still not too late to plant suckers. I'll still keep planting suckers for a couple of weeks. Even if you get 1 or 2 trusses from them, it's not it's better than nothing. This area, I planted so many beetroot seeds. I planted so many chard seeds. I've got 2 chard plants, and the beetroot are nowhere to be seen. I just don't know what's happened with the beetroot this year. Some positives: this Marrow plant has given some quite nice. This courgette plant has given some quite nice courgettes. It's producing. We're getting these sorts of things every couple of days, and we're picking them. So there's some positives coming out of it. Our coriander's done absolutely lovely. We're getting lots of coriander harvests, and you can see if I peel back the mulch, even the weeds are struggling this year. Look, that's a bramble, but if I pull back the mulch, it's just like absolute dust. Look how dry that is. It just feels like there's no water in there, and it's never felt like that before. Not at this stage. And this is something that we're going to have to expect and get used to for years to come. If we're going to have more extreme weather like the season that we've just had, yeah, ground's going to dry up a lot faster. So start thinking about putting in swales, start thinking about ways of absorbing water. Under this path here, I've got a swale, so there's a ditch here that's supposed to catch water that comes down the 2 paths and drive it into this bed. It would work if we just had the rainfall. We've just not had the rainfall, what can I say? Back here with these runner beans, we should have been picking runner beans by now, but my runner beans have been eaten by slugs twice. What seems to be happening is we're getting no rain, it's really dry, and then we get a slight showering, so it wets the surface of the soil, the slugs get out, decimate everything, and then we're back to no rain again. The arch behind us, the second plantings on there have started to make a difference and started to come up, and we can see them coming back to life. That's the other thing as well. I've just been so busy. I've not been able to make my compost the way I do. I've not been able to add the compost to the beds the way I do. I've not been able to mulch the garden the way I do. So there's a sign there that just tells me that mulch is so key. Addition of that mulch is really important. My strawberry beds, the strawberries have been really disgusting this year. Some of them have been okay, but a lot of them have been quite bitter. So what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to keep the young runners. I'm going to dig this bed, throw all the old plants away, compost them all, and plant the young runners in place. I don't need this many strawberry plants. Most of these are going to get taken out and thrown away. So this is what I was talking about with tomato plants. Sometimes if you double stem them, so rather than grow them on a single stem, grow them on a double stem like I've done here, it just takes some of that vigor out of it, so you can get a good amount of tomatoes off them. These are Sweet Million variety. So we're getting a good amount of tomatoes, a good set of trusses. So just on the main stem, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trusses, and on the sucker we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 trusses and a 5th one setting and a 6th one flowering. So you can still get a good harvest off them. What I had to do with a Sweet Million that grew in here a couple of years ago was I had to grow it up and then angle it and bend it across, and I got 14 trusses off one plant. This could be my record breaker, so that's something that's positive. That's something that's very positive actually. Let's see what else we've got back here. The aubergines are coming into flower. Now with these aubergines, I mean, these flowers are just so pretty. So to make sure these aubergines are setting, it's important to come and pollinate these by hand. So just a little paintbrush, give them a gentle flick like that with a paintbrush. And the nagas are starting to flower now, and we should have a good naga harvest. So if you like Bangladeshi Danu Morris, if you've been in Bangladesh recently, the Bangladeshi Danu Morris here coming on absolutely beautiful. But I've got to get these pots outside because the plants in the ground are starting to put on some size now. So these pots need to go out, and I need to find some space outside for these guys so I can give the things in the ground a place to grow. My lab beans or my deshiuri, the ones back there, I don't know what's going on with them, but they're just now sending out runners. They've stayed quite short and they've produced uri at the very base without putting on any growth, so hopefully they'll start putting on some growth now and catch up. Zinger, we've got a Zinger over there, which is a ridge gourd. That's coming on nice, but that's gonna, I mean, my mum's planted some yard long beans or lubiuri just next to them, and that Zinger will take over that whole side. Normally by this time of year they've already come up and they're starting to shade the greenhouse a little bit, but the reason that I plant the way I do in this tall section with the taller plants at the back is it gives me that protection from the sun, and it just keeps it a little bit cooler in here by providing a bit of a shade, so I don't always have to put that shade cloth on. Just the way I'm planting, I can save from using that additional plastic. Really nice doogie plant there, or callaloo or denga, or however we're going to call it, and there's aubergines behind it. We've still got plants that I just couldn't find space for, so I stuck them in little pots. So even in little pots, these nagas are still producing. I mean, that's come on with some nice flowers. I'll get at least a handful of naga from each plant. So in the little pots, the amount of space that it's taken is barely anything. And they still put, hopefully if they give the harvest even that's fantastic. So you can see what I mean about these small pots, and these Hungarian hot wax, they've just given me a really good harvest. Even in these small pots, they're really putting on a good amount of chilies. I've probably had 5 or 6 of these already off this plant, so they'll keep coming on. And the same thing with these Danu Morris in these plants. Oh, these are Bangladeshi hot chili. They're a hot pepper, Danu Morris they're called, and they're coming on. Yeah, even in that sort of pot, it's just an old yogurt pot, but it's coming on something nice. Isn't that a thing of beauty? That's the first naga of the year. It'll keep growing, but that's the first one, so I'm quite proud of that one. We've got spaghetti chilies over there, but nothing growing quite straight enough to give me anything worth bragging about. Look at this beautiful specimen of a chili plant here. This is a habanero, absolutely beautiful shape. It's in a small pot, and look at the amount of flowers on it. If they all set, I'm going to be coming out my eyes with habaneros. Yeah, my chilies are doing absolutely fantastic. Some of the other stuff in the garden outside has been struggling. I've got to think about how I'm going to improve the water quality in those gardens and what I'm going to do. And there's an idea that I've been playing with, is to construct a network of channels to catch and divert water. Let me have a play about with that idea, and maybe this autumn I'll work on that and see how I can get that in place. There's a tour of the full garden. You can see some of the successes that I've had and some of the failures that I've had, and let's see if we're able to turn it around through the rest of the season. We never know, it might just turn around. Fingers crossed. There's still things you can be planting. Go and check out what to plant in July and what to plant in August videos. There's still loads to plant. I'm going to keep on planting radishes, beetroot, these kind of things. I'm going to get them in the ground again. We'll see. I mean, never give up hope. With a garden, never give up hope. There's always something that can be done. You might not get the best result one year. You might have a off year like me, but we'll check at the end of the season. We'll do another progress report like this in autumn, and we'll see where we're at. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for regular updates. If you want to support our channel, why not become a patron? So I'll leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.